Woo! Deletion! My skin's dying because you're under it. I'm done lying to myself for this. For all the wonder and believing that it's making me weak. I'll fade away and classify myself as obsolete.
Words are about to be spoken on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, presented to you by the Podcast Eat and Ad-Free Shows Network. I'm John Alba, that's the broken one, the woken one, the spoken one himself, Mr. Matt Hardy. What's going on, man? You're out on the West Coast, Best Coast, right?
Sure. West Coast, Best Coast. I don't know. I'm partial to East Coast, Beast Coast, just because that's right. Just here hanging out. We've got a long week of AEW. Tonight is obviously a lot of Dynamite, and then Friday there is a live Collision, and then Saturday is a PPV. Or a premium live event, PLE, however you want to refer to it, and it is Full Gear.
I saw someone yesterday refer to the West Coast as the left coast. I said, nah, that is, for all intents and purposes, accurate. So
they're not wrong.
Might get a new gimmick as far as I see it. You are out there, as you just said, Full Gear weekend coming up. A lot of uncertainty over what will be to come of that pay-per-view. Maxwell Jacob Friedman has got quite a few people gunning after him. We'll get a chance to talk about that. This week we are talking about the Invasion and Survivor Series 2001, where you and Jeff faced the Dudley Boyz in a Tag Team Unification Championship match in a steel cage, and we will get a chance to run through that. Lots to cover this week. In the aftermath of our Chris Jericho episode, Matt, what was the feedback you got about Y2J?
It was really good. Actually, people seem to really enjoy the episode. I love talking about Chris. He's someone I know very well. I've known him now for 25 years almost. So it was very fun. It was very enjoyable. And once again, it can't be understated enough. He is one of the GOATs. He's been a master of reinvention. He's done what he's needed to do to make sure to stay relevant and in the fold. And, kudos to Chris Jericho, dude. He's killing it still.
Well, he has the Bucks of Youth with Kenny Omega this week at the pay-per-view. How does it feel when you see Kenny and the Bucks fight one another rather than fight alongside each other?
Yeah, it's a very interesting dichotomy with those guys. I feel like it's very similar to myself and Jeff. I mean, myself and Jeff, people love us together because we kind of succeeded and we kind of came up through the ranks together. I feel like it's very similar with Kenny and the Bucks as the Elite. I feel like people love seeing the Elite together. Sure, when they face one another, Kenny versus the Bucks, they always kill it. It's always amazing matches. They're going to burn the house down without a shadow of a doubt. But I just feel like they're much more beloved when they're working together as a team, as a unit. And I feel like people followed those guys and they saw their nascence together as they all became these big, super, important wrestlers in the professional wrestling industry. I feel like they're much better together than they are against one another, but they're still going to have a great match against one another, no doubt.
Max is in the main event with Jay White, and we've seen all these different people surrounding him, these Mask to Silence, the Devil Mask. What's your take on all that stuff? For all the knocks on AEW about there not being long-term storytelling or whatever it is, you can look up and down the card and make an argument for or against that, but there's no denying that this main event angle here with the Devil and the Mask to Silence is certainly getting plenty of TV time.
It's intriguing, which is very important. I feel like to generate interest in pro wrestling, it isn't because there's a great match on the line. It's because there's a great story and you're really interested in the journey the characters are taking. I think that is what makes professional wrestling successful, and I think that's what helps eyeballs get on the product. So in that scenario, I think it's a good thing they're doing with the Devil. Let me ask you this, John. Who do you think the Devil is?
I think the Devil is Adam Cole.
If I had to guess, that would be my guess as well. But who knows?
And you genuinely don't know. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah, I genuinely don't. That's just like from basic storytelling, and just kind of like which direction they would go in. So, yeah, I have no idea. But then you have the other question that is looming is who are the other guys under the mask, his associates, his colleagues, that are helping him out. Who do you think that group of people is going to be, John?
I think it will be all people who Max has wronged in the past and are now out to get revenge on him. The Wardlow types, maybe even a Sean Spears type, FTR, people in that realm who he has wronged in the past. That, I mean, what a story would be if the whole Pinnacle is underneath that.
That's what I was going to say. You're saying it's the Pinnacle, then.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's the Pinnacle or anyone that he's encountered too, I think would be really interesting. My take on it, Matt, and let me know what you think about this. My take on it has been that this is all a story with the underlying motif of believing in yourself. That is ultimately the end goal with this, where Adam Cole utilized, in theory here, if this were to play out the way that I believe it is, Adam Cole utilized Max's vulnerability, tried to bring out this vulnerable side of him to take advantage of it. And then when he has the opportunity to take advantage of it, he will strike and cost Max everything. And in that moment, Max will feel like he has lost everything. He will feel like a fool for having been vulnerable. He will feel like an idiot for being taken advantage of, for being his honest, true self. But then, with the help of recognizing what is right versus what is wrong, with the adoration of the people, he will slowly knock off those enemies one by one, rebuild his confidence in himself, and understand at the end of the day, it is okay to be vulnerable. It is okay to be yourself. You don't have to be a scumbag. You can be a true babyface at the end. And he overcomes the odds and gives Adam Cole his comeuppance. That's how I view this story playing out over a long period of time. Could I be wrong? Maybe. But what say you?
I dig that. That was explained very well. You really hit your point very very elegantly. Do you think MJF loses the title this Sunday?
Whether he loses it this Sunday or not, I don't know, but I don't think he's holding the title.
Saturday, by the way. It's Saturday.
This weekend, rather, I should say. I don't think he's holding the title that much longer. I could see a scenario where I don't think this is one of those stories where it is contingent on Max having the title. I
feel like with the storyline you laid out, which I do like a lot, I feel like if he lost the title, that even adds to it. It accentuates
Exactly. I think that very much adds to it. It adds to the gravity of the stakes. It adds to the character development. It provides a vehicle to develop that character further. We all love a good story like that, where someone who has doubted themselves learns to believe in their authenticity and rise above that. It's a great story. And for Max, it's even better, Matt, because Max was the scumbag. Max was the jerk. He was the hull of the ass, as you would say.
Yes.
And now he has an opportunity to rise above those who have taken advantage of him. Just the way that I would book it doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong. We'll see what happens.
Do you think there's any chance that Max is the devil himself?
That would be very meta. I don't know if that's where I would go.
That'd be a little too much for me.
I think that would be very much a little too Inception-y to me for that to be like if we were viewing in this weird meta construct this internal battle between Max and himself where the devil is just a figment of his imagination and it's this dual personality and he had these assailants taking these people out just to fool. I don't know. To me, that would undermine everything they've accomplished with Max. To me.
I mean, I agree with that. Let me ask you this. Is there any chance the devil could be Jack Perry?
I've seen people think that, and I don't think that is going to be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if Jack Perry was one of the assailants. I could totally see a scenario where that's the case. Max has wronged him in the past. I could see him being one of the masked men. I mean, what does your gut say about this? You think Adam Cole's the devil here, but what does your gut say here?
I mean, they, those guys bonded and just their chemistry together was so strong as they were doing that, odd bedfellows tight tag team deal, and they win the titles, and they're best friends, and they get through that world title match, and MJF retains. So it's really interesting. They have a very intriguing dichotomy, I think. So Adam, I feel like, makes the most sense in the big scheme of things. Could it be the Kingdom, and could it be those guys tied into it? Possibly. Sure. It's like a new faction. You have like the Undisputed Kingdom era, group or whatever, super group, which I don't know. That doesn't necessarily seem like it would fit perfectly in, because I feel like everybody that's in that group needs to have some sort of personal issue with Max, and they're not as strongly bonded or tied with Max. But I do think it would be. I think it most likely Adam Cole would be my guess. I'm just not sure who the guys are going to be. I'm really curious of the direction that AEW goes with this.
And I'm curious if they go very aces and eights with it, where maybe one by one we learn who the assailants are before the big reveal of who is the masked man. I could see them going that route, especially if we're trying to buy some time here for Adam Cole to get healthy and to recover, because as you've said, even on this podcast, was a very serious injury that he sustained here. Also, I want to hit on this real quick. Lots of rumors going around that your boy Randy Orton could be on his way back soon. We saw Drew McIntyre turn heel on WWE programming this week. I know you really got to enjoy getting to know Randy quite more intimately over the course of your last few years in WWE. To see him come back potentially from what was looking like a career-threatening back injury, what would that mean for you as his friend?
I mean, I'd be extremely happy for him. Big Randy Orton fan, big Randy Orton supporter right now. I think since day one, even before, people really grew to appreciate how great Randy was. I think from day one, he's always been great. He's always been great in the ring. The way he takes his time, the way he calculates every single moment, every single taunt he does. He's very, very smart, very crisp with that. I love working with Randy. Always a blast working with him. It feels like a night off. He's just one of those guys that I gel with so well. So yeah, super happy that he's healthy. Super happy he's coming back, and I think he's going to be a huge boost for WWE and a huge contributor going forward.
Would you feud him and Cody?
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't even hate them, being on the same page for a little bit, and then let the Viper come out and do his thing, and then they could have their little program.
Yeah. I think that's a money program going into WrestleMania season and the Royal Rumble, and eventually to get Cody to wherever the hell we're headed with him. I don't know what inning we're in, but maybe it's the fifth. I don't know. That is still to be seen, I suppose.
I think we're in the fifth rounds of extra innings, John.
Oh, okay. We've put the ghost runner on second base. We're trying to get them in. I'll tell you. Yeah. I saw this report this week. I forget who it was that reported it, so forgive me, but it was like WWE is trying to keep LA Knight strong despite his loss against Roman Reigns. And all I say to that, Matt, is if your concern is keeping someone strong after a loss, why book the match in the first place? Why do it?
I don't think, because he got beat by Roman Reigns, I don't think that makes him look weak.
I don't disagree with you, but still.
Roman Reigns has been the most dominant champion in forever, so just having a match with Roman probably more likely than not elevates you in some ways, even in losing. So I don't think that's an issue. I get it. They might want to get him on a roll because they feel like it slowed down his momentum because he was like a top merch seller and just one of the most popular acts, whatever. So, I don't mind that match, but I don't think that's I don't think that's a fall from grace that people are claiming that it is. I think it's just one of those things. It's a character that tried really hard to beat the guy who is the man. He didn't beat the guy, but now he moves on and continues, in a different direction.
I also think that LA Knight is going to have a very big either Royal Rumble or WrestleMania match. I very much believe that he and Logan Paul are going to have a United States Championship match where I could see LA Knight getting that big moment on a big stage and winning that championship from Logan Paul. And I think that would elevate him pretty damn well, all things considered.
Logan Paul had a hell of an angle there. He was doing when he was wearing the belt naked, and they told him not to procreate in the with the title on or whatever, and he said he's been procreating nonstop. So it's pretty interesting. Quite a way to promote socially.
He knows what he's doing, man. Can't say he doesn't.
No, he's good with it. He knows how to create buzz. He knows how to generate interest.
I think he's stealing from the Matt Hardy playbook there. I've seen those pictures of you and Rebecca over the years.
There you have it. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I was when we first won the tag team titles. Young, healthy Matt Hardy wanted to take a title naked with the belt hanging out of his mouth over his package. So I've done
those
that.
pictures.
Yeah,
I've seen them.
I'm not gonna hate on somebody at all. It's just very intriguing.
Matt, you and I are coming to the stage in just a couple weeks here. We are headed to WrestleCade. It's a 3-day family-friendly convention coming to you from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, November 24th through 26th. WrestleCade.com is where you're going to want to get your tickets. Meet tons and tons of wrestling legends like Matt Cardona, Eric Bischoff, Lex Luger, Jake the Snake Roberts, Arn Anderson, Kane, and of course, the Hardy Boyz. You and I, November 24th, after the GCW show, will be bringing a live edition of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy to the stage as we present Becoming Broken and tell the story for the first time ever in front of an audience of how Matt Hardy conceptualized the Broken Matt character and changed wrestling forever. What are you most looking forward to with WrestleCade weekend?
A lot of things. The first thing I'm looking most forward to, obviously, is doing the podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have EC3 there. We're going to have Ron Simmons there. He's going to sit in. I can't wait to tell a couple of Ron Simmons stories with him live and in living color. And I'm very curious to hear Ron's reactions to some of the broken Matt Hardy stories, some of the hijinks that we were up to in that day and age. EC3, always love chatting with him, talking shop. So he was there for the beginning of the Big Money Matt. He was there for the beginning of Broken Matt Hardy. So he was there all along that period of time. And once again, I always dubbed that the funnest time of my career. I had the most fun that year in 2016 that I've ever had in my entire career. So it's going to be so great to go back and revisit all that and just share all my secrets with all the people in the crowd.
It's going to be amazing. WrestleCade.com is where you get your tickets for the convention and for the live stage show as well. They are fantastic people out there in Hardy Country. It's the perfect way to cure your Thanksgiving hangover as well. Come hang out with a bunch of wrestling fans, meet some wrestlers. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the nights, they get a little crazy too. Like you'll be at the hotel bar and all of a sudden you're drinking a beer with the Mortons.
Yeah.
Like that's just what happens.
You never know who will turn up. Anything can happen at the WrestleCade, brother.
Anything can happen at the World WrestleCade Federation, Matt Hardy. It's very true. You and Jeff have a match with Heath and Rhino on the WrestleCade show. That's going to be super fun. Speedball Mike Bailey versus Andrade. Are you kidding me?
Wow, that's going to be a barn run.
As you would say, that's my type of match, and I cannot wait to watch that. WrestleCade.com is where you pick up your tickets. We cannot wait to see you there. Okay, Matt. So we're going to talk Survivor Series. We're going to talk the Invasion, and it's going to be a great episode. But before we can, you know what I got to ask? Please hit us with that Matt Fact.
Matt Fact. Matt disapproves of the Autumn DST.
Please elaborate.
And I did that Matt Fact for you today, John. Matt disapproves of the Autumn Daylight Savings Time. Just because it turns the clock back at 5:25, it is dark. And especially when I was younger, when I would sleep in till 11 or noon, and that was my thing, single Matt, right? I remember hating and it being very depressed because the sun went down so early, and it just felt like it just robs the day from you. As I've gotten older and I have children, I'm up at 6:30, 7, usually very early in the morning. So I'm okay with it now. I handle it a lot better. But just whenever that daylight savings time happens every November and the clocks go back to 5:25, I think as human beings, it's just instinctual. It's kind of depressing. Just it seems like it's dark all the time. And it makes me think like a vampire probably would have, if they weren't a vampire, they probably would have depression issues because all they can do is be in the dark all the time. It really does. I feel like sunlight is so important, and it kind of accentuates how much we appreciate and enjoy sunlight as well.
I totally agree. It is immensely depressing where I leave for work around 5 p.m. and it's already pitch black out. I hate that so much. And it's really, the temperature has dropped significantly here lately. And I am feeling that. It's crazy, man. I'm not a fan of it, but Alas, we trudge on, we trudge into the winter months, and hopefully brighter days, quite literally, will be ahead of us in the near future.
And I'm also going to tell you, I put DST to try and save a little space on that. Matt,
I know. I know why you did. I know why you did. You're trying to save me the graphic and not having to minimize the text and scrunch it up. I'll take it. The hardest are when you throw 5 Matt facts in an episode, and I got to track them all down. Those are the hardest. So, okay. So the seasons are a changing, the weather is turning, and you know that sometimes your body's just not feeling up to it. Well, thankfully, with our friends over at AG1s, you know that you're going to be putting the absolute best stuff in your body to be feeling great every single day. It's the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. And I'm drinking AG1 every single day. Matt Hardy's drinking AG1 every single day because we're tired of taking all these different supplements and want a single solution that supports our entire body health and covers our nutritional bases every day. You know, I'm on that gut watch. I'm always talking about that here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. We know a little dad bod goes a long way for some people, and that's cool, but I do want to look good and I want to feel good, and I don't want to worry about carrying around all these different multivitamins and fat burners and supplements. I want something that is all in one. AG1 replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, and more in one simple drinkable habit. Its science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food source nutrients are going to help you out and raise the standard for quality in the supplement category. AG1 is a great bang for your buck as it replaces a lot of other supplements like those daily multivitamins, the minerals, the pre and probiotics for your gut health, the adaptogens, your green blends, literally all in one scoop of powder. It's one daily serving, giving you the comprehensive foundational nutrition you're going to need, supporting energy, focus, strength, clarity, with 75 high-quality vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced ingredients. We want to help you out here at the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. If you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 now and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/Hardy. That's drinkag1.com/Hardy. Check it out. So we are going to talk about the Invasion and Survivor Series 2001. We are coming up on the 22-year anniversary of that pay-per-view, the ending to one of the most infamous storylines ever. This elevated some people to a new level. It detracted others. Mm-hmm. Some were given opportunities they would have never been given. Others lost opportunities. We're talking about a dramatic expansion of rosters, one that was controversial in every which way, and ultimately led to the brand split of Raw and SmackDown. But that was not always the plan, Matt Hardy, as we know. Mm-hmm. In 2000, in the beginning of 2001, WCW was in financial peril and was in dangerous territory and potentially running the risk of going out of business. WCW, you've talked about it at length on this podcast. It was so important to the lifeblood of the wrestling industry and giving people options and places to work. When did you first realize that WCW was in trouble?
I actually got a heads up from Michael that they had been talking about purchasing WCW. WWE obviously had been talking to WCW about purchasing them. But I knew it was in trouble whenever the reports came out, with their bad TV, their bad numbers, just things were in chaos. You could really tell WCW was in a state of bedlam, and it didn't look good. And then there was this rumors going around that like Eric Bischoff was going to buy it using Fusion or some company, whatever. And we just knew that there was a chance that WCW was going to change. It was going to get bought out, and everyone feared that Vince and the WWE would buy it, and that's ultimately what ended up happening.
When do you estimate that you heard from Michael Hayes that Vince was considering a purchase?
I know it was on the table. I heard like late in one week, like on a Thursday or Friday, and then I feel like it was purchased over the weekend, and then that Monday.
Oh, okay. So you only heard like right beforehand.
Yeah, like right as it was kind of like happening, right? That when it could truly be when it could truly be stated that it was in the process of being bought.
I know you didn't speak to a ton of WCW talent at the time. Obviously, Shane Helms was there, one of your best friends during the chaos. Did you
Right.
ever get any indication from anyone within the confines that there was trouble?
Yeah, I think they knew. I think they knew they were on the professional wrestling Titanic. They knew it was going down. They just didn't know how fast it was going to go down. They knew things were changing, and they knew there was going to be some sort of alteration to the company in whole.
Well, March 23rd, 2001, everything changes. The World Wrestling Federation purchases the rights to WCW's video library, the trademarks, the contracts for certain wrestlers, the belts, properties, everything. Vince purchases for a low fee, a wee fee, if you will.
Yeah.
And the final night of Monday Nitro occurs head-to-head with Monday Night Raw on March 26th, except it's not head-to-head. It's a simulcast. And we see Vince McMahon on WCW programming. And these two worlds that have been separated for so long converge. As we've talked about on this podcast, he fires Jeff Jarrett on live television. Sting versus Ric Flair is the main event. It's a surreal night in wrestling history. What do you remember about that episode of Monday Night Raw from Cleveland?
Myself and the majority of WWE talent, we looked at it like we look at the autumn daylight savings time change. It was very depressing. We hated to see it in many, many ways because we just knew it was going to eventually limit our options. It kind of put the WWE in the position of a monopoly. It limited, the opportunity for guys to ask for more money or to, after doing a term in WWE, being able to go to WCW and kind of like be re-energized and start anew again. So we knew it was going to ultimately end up being bad for the business.
What about the night itself and seeing the surreality of the evening with Vince showing up on Nitro and there being so much uncertainty over which talent would cross over and who would be let go?
I mean, obviously that was a cool that was a cool night. As far as the idea of having WCW intertwined with WWF, WWE is something that had never truly happened legitimately before, and it was very cool that happened. So that was a very incredible night. And I just remember sitting backstage, and we were all watching the TV like wrestling fans, like little kids just sitting on the edge of their seat, like what's going to happen next? Who's going to show up? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? What's truly going to happen here? Because nobody knew. We were really entering into a very unknown period of WWE.
When mergers and acquisitions happen, it's not unusual for people to lose their jobs. What kind of concern, if any, was there from you guys that some of you might be released in favor of some of these WCW talents?
Speaking personally for myself and Jeff, we were very happy with our spot. We were cool with where we were at. I don't think we felt any stress from that area as far as like we're going to lose our job or be replaced or whatever. But we did know it was going to add a lot of people to the roster, and like Vince is going to have to work to get those people over as well, especially in his mind, because those guys all have the WCW stank on them. I remember there was stories going around how Vince said, this WCW branding is so bad. We've got to wash this filth off these guys. They've all got that WCW stank on them. He wanted to WWE them and make them into superstars, not just like shitty WCW wrestlers. That's kind of how he viewed them. He just thought the branding wasn't as good. And that's just how Vince is going to think, because that's how Vince McMahon is wired too. What I do is the best and anything else is secondary.
Keep the branding aside. How do you think Vince viewed the talent as individuals? Like there's the old moniker for SNL. They were the not ready for primetime players, right? Were WCW wrestlers viewed in that same light through Vince?
I think so. Vince, he thinks until you come through his system, you're not the best in the world at what you're doing. And that's just kind of Vince's mentality. And, you can't hate on him for having that, because he would take a lot of pride in his product and whatnot. But I know there were guys that came and they didn't necessarily work a WWE TV style, and that's something Vince wanted to iron out and get all the kinks out from all these guys that were going to be on TV, regardless of who the star was.
When you say that, what do you mean?
because like WWE had a very specific way. They do have a very specific way. It changes, it evolves over time of how they do TV. And like when DDP came in, there were some of the things that we would do in WWE that DDP didn't necessarily do, and that didn't mean they were wrong. It's just kind of what he'd been doing. It's what he was doing at WCW. It's what worked for him. It's what got him over.
Can you give me an example of that?
I'll go all the way. Goldberg is another example. Whenever he came in, because really all Goldberg did, all Goldberg did really was like go out and like murder people. He would go to the ring, he would murder someone in 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And there were a couple of times he would have a little bit of longer match where he would do this and he would win and it would be competitive and whatnot. But then once he got there, Vince, in his mind goes like, you got to be able to go out and have like a competitive match. You got to go out and got to be able to fill 8 minutes or whatever it may be. There were a couple instances where myself and Christian wrestled him and we put in a little more time. It was still very Goldberg heavy on the offense, but they wanted him to be able to go out and have these competitive matches and be able to like fill time and whatnot. So sometimes they took away from those guys what made those guys themselves, I think. And even like with DDP, I feel like he was so known as a hardworking guy. He was like the everyday man, the hardworking guy who really worked his way up the ranks. And in reality, that is kind of what he did. The first thing they put him in, they're like, okay, well, you're with WCW. We're going to make you a heel. We're going to turn you into the Stalker. And I feel like the Stalker went against everything the DDP really was at his core. And it kind of goes against everything that got him over. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just was more curious even about the semantics of television more than anything. Like if the getting in the weeds as much as possible here, if the way you play to a camera in a WWF match was different than how they would have in a WCW match. Like, do you understand what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, I mean, there were times where, and you see in AEW all the time, like someone will do a move or they hit a finish, they look at the camera and say, I told you I'm the one, or whatever it may be. Like there was a point in time where Vince was like, do not look directly into a camera. Do not react directly into the camera. The camera is out there capturing you. Don't look into the camera. And I remember that was a big thing that he really stressed for these WCW guys. Said, you might do that amateur look into the camera shit at WCW, but we don't do that here. Things like that. He very much wanted to manufacture guys that worked what he saw as the WWE style.
That's what I wanted to know. So there was a clear distinction in terms of the chemical compound of WWE TV versus WCW TV. I mean, I think you can make that claim in fair about the presentation because WWF television always came off as more polished than WCW. Yeah. WCW always came off a little more anything can happen. It's a little more, no pun intended, raw. And I think that was one of the things that appealed to a lot of the WCW audience at the time.
100%. And I agree with that. When I first started watching wrestling and I really got into it, I mean, I felt like if I was watching NWA WCW back in the day, it's just like, these are like guys that are like your dad. They'd like whip somebody's ass if they had to do it, like a tough old dude. And that's what it felt like. It felt very gritty. It felt very, very raw, as you said. And then you would watch WWF and it was like this glamour and glitz, like over the top, super produced. And like everyone looks like this mega star walking out with this spectacular entrance and whatnot. So there was definitely a big difference in that. And there was a lot of time stuff at WCW really appealed to me more than WWE, but I also knew you could tell if you're watching WWE, like these guys are stars and that's how they're presenting them. That's how they want people to look at these guys. They're wrestlers. Once again, you had to call them WWE superstars. That was like a very specific branding point. You couldn't say WWE wrestlers. These guys are superstars. Vince knew how he wanted to brand these guys, and they really had like a slick, glamorous production.
And there are positives and negatives to all that, right? There's definitely ways in which that appeals. There's ways where it maybe pushes people away. Like there are times where WCW certainly could have utilized some of the great production of WWE. For example, how many episodes of Nitro were there where all night long you're building to Sting's appearance? Sting is going to come down from the rafters, right? And the show's poorly produced to the point where Sting is finally coming down from the rafters. Chaos is ensuing, and Tony Schiavone would say, "We're out of time, but we're going to keep the cameras rolling, and we'll show you what happened next week." Like that would happen all the time. We're out of time. We got to go. We'll keep the cameras going.
The old Carney trick.
But that was poor production. They ran out of time. They didn't plan out their show and pace it out correctly. Now I do a show with the guy who is responsible for that and is always talking about show production. Whatever. It is what it is. Just
has Eric ever went into stories of doing a Nitro and like running short on time at the end of the night, and they had to like cut? They had to go cut to black.
I'll ask him about it. We're doing an Ask Eric this week on Strictly Business, so I'll ask him about that because it happened, and it's not like it hasn't happened in WWE. I'm sure it has. Where time is, I mean, there's stories where WrestleMania matches, Cody's WrestleMania match one year got cut because they just ran out of time.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's
I remember
at Manias.
Yeah, I mean, you've had your time cut significantly.
Oh my God, it was like every pay-per-view occurrence for a while.
So on May 28th, we get this kicked off on television. Lance Storm invades Raw on behalf of Shane McMahon. And the next week, it's Hugh Morris who comes out. And then June 24th at King of the Ring, Booker T interferes in the main event of a WWF Championship match and screws over Stone Cold Steve Austin. So even though Shane McMahon at WrestleMania, keep in mind, WrestleMania X7, Shane is the clear babyface against Vince in their street fight. That story about Vince cheating on Linda and the divorce. Shane is the clearly positioned babyface. Instead, all of these WCW wrestlers are coming in as heels and aligning with Shane. Interesting switch, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think about that WrestleMania match, and I just have to do this over and over. You know, it's the one where Vince did the scene where he's all bleeding, right? It was a big switch, but you you could know without a shadow of a doubt, Vince McMahon was not going to let the WWF or WWE be the heel in this scenario. The bad guy was always going to be WCW, and everybody that were WWE fans wanted to see WWE prevail over the WCW.
But
that was definitely Vince's
why, if the plans at the time, and these were the plans were to launch a Nitro and a Raw show, one with each brand represented. If you're trying to incentivize people to tune in, why would you present universally and blanket all of these WCW wrestlers as heels?
And I mean, I agree. I agree with you. I didn't like it. I like, you know, I don't know if Vince just didn't get the deal or if he got frustrated of waiting because they couldn't secure some time slot for Nitro or whatever the scenario was. But just every episode was like WWF versus WCW. I hated that period of time. I was not a fan of it. I just felt like it wasn't good programming, and just so much stuff got wasted, and you had to turn all of the WCW guys into heels, and a lot of those guys were just very beloved. It was just a very, very strange scenario.
It was. I think, Matt, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this hypothesis I have, is that Vince never had any actual interest of doing a WWE versus WCW story. He never truly wanted to do a brand split or capitalize on that because he viewed WCW in the way that you described earlier.
Inferior.
But they were inferior, right. But the fans were so passionate about these dream matches, the Goldbergs versus Austin, the Booker T's versus The Rock, the DDPs versus The Rock, all those things, the Stings versus the Undertakers. He knew that the fans were so vocal about this that he tried to acquiesce them at first. And by setting it up for failure, which Vince set this up for failure, he could then say, see, it didn't work.
Right. See, I was right.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I mean, Vince has done that several times. See, I was right. And he'll, you know, create a desired effect so that it proves his point. No, you're not wrong.
In July, they go all out here, where they've been presenting the WCW guys as heels. And on July 2nd, the final 20 minutes of Raw are rebranded under the WCW name. Scott Hudson and Arn Anderson are the commentators. Jim Ross and Paul Heyman are gone. Buff Bagwell versus... What's that?
In Washington State.
In Washington State. Buff Bagwell and Booker T are the main event. They are wrestling for the WCW Championship. Stacy Keibler is the ring announcer. They've got all these WCW ring skirts and lighting. And it's a disaster. The fans do not care. Neither of these guys are over in the way that they're invested in a main event match between them. And Buff Bagwell was a big star in WCW as a babyface.
Yeah.
Fans didn't care here. What do you toss that up to, and what was the reaction from the roster that night?
I remember it being a sellout at the monitor backstage where everybody kind of sat and watched what was going on, and people were just like, "Oh, oh," and it just because they booed them so hard, the people really rejected them, and once again, much like you said, in some ways they were kind of set up for failure too. You know, that you didn't get people excited to watch these guys. They were kind of both portrayed as the bad guys in the story, as they were, coming into WWE, and they were, jumping our beloved baby faces, their beloved WWE stars. And now you send these two guys out to Wrestle 101 and you brand it as WCW, which these people bought WWE tickets to watch a WWE show. And then they really were vocal and they spoke their mind, and they booed the shit out of them. And it was a very negatively reacted to segment. And we just like, that's going to be tough to recover from as far as the WCW branding.
I mean, Buff hadn't even been on TV. This is Buff's first and only appearance on television. He's ice cold coming into it. They have a match where there's a ton of rest holds. They do nothing to be set up for success here. Eventually, there's interference from the WWF wrestlers. And after this night, all the plans change. Mm-hmm. They are pivoting. The brand extension between these two, WCW and WWE, is gone. Just like that. Crowd is chanting boring. I mean, it is a disaster in every single possible way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, as we were watching it, we're going, ugh. It was painful to watch. It really was, because the crowd just shit on it so bad.
Do you remember there being word of changes coming after that evening?
No, but I feel like everyone probably assumed that we were going to pivot very quickly.
Well, there is, in fact, a major pivot made the next week, July 9th, from the Phillips Arena in Atlanta, where we get the introduction of ECW. Paul Heyman leads his invaders in a war against the WCW and WWF superstars. Shane feigns that he doesn't know where this came from, and now it's a three-way war. Except at the end of the night, we find out that WCW and ECW are actually in cahoots.
Not in cahoots.
And the new owner of ECW is Stephanie McMahon, who, by the way, the last time we saw her on TV was firmly in her father's corner at WrestleMania. Now, Paul Heyman, Stephanie McMahon, and Shane McMahon have aligned to create a faction appropriately referred to as the Alliance, and are aiming to shut down Vince McMahon's World Wrestling Federation. Life hits you fast, right? It comes at you fast, huh?
It really does. I can almost hear Vince following the WCW title match debacle between Buff and Booker, right? He's in a creative meeting. Let's go. He said, well, fuck. They won't stop chanting that ECW shit. Just get Paul and all these ECW misfits. Just fucking put them out there, and we'll bond them all together, and it could be an alliance and shit. Maybe they have enough steam they could actually challenge the WWE, since we're such a superior branding. You know, they just won't quit chanting that ECW shit. ECW, ECW, ECW. You know, that could possibly be how we got to that point.
Or, let me pitch this to you. Is it the crutch that Vince felt the only thing that could guarantee getting over was a McMahon storyline? How many McMahon storylines did we see in that era, Matt?
100%. I mean, if you attach a McMahon to it, it will work, because the McMahons are evergreen over. You know, that's his mentality. Pow! The McMahons were evergreen over, pow. Attach a McMahon to the storyline, it'll make it work. We'll strap the rocket on it and take it to the moon, brother. So yeah, I'm sure that was his mentality, because he always that was a trick he would always pull out, right? If something If he felt like he needed a little boost or something extra, he would come back on TV. He would stick one of his family members on it, whatever. The McMahons were always such a pivotal, important part of WWE TV, and Vince truly believed that, the McMahons, there was a ton of equity in them. So he was putting McMahons with WCW and ECW now and combining them as the alliance to take out the poor, sympathetic babyface of Vince McMahon, who's never done anything wrong.
That's the weird switch, right? Vince,
Yeah.
who has been this evil, dastardly heel who brought Stone Cold Steve Austin to the corporate side and made him evil just months prior, is now the glory to all babyface who's going to lead his company and prevail past all this alliance BS.
John, don't hate on Vince. He's a very sympathetic figure. All he wanted to do was put smiles on faces. Like great entertainment with the WWE, with the World Wrestling Federation. He just wanted to put smiles on faces. He's a sympathetic figure in all this.
Yeah. Who among us have not looked at Vince McMahon and said, my heart goes out to him?
Yeah. Well, yeah. My heart goes out to him so much at that time. He looked so weak. He looked so handicapped. He looked so broken that I wanted to eat him. Eat him. Eat him. He was a very sympathetic figure.
Well, that leads us to the Alliance pay-per-view where guess what happens, Matt Hardy? Stone Cold Steve Austin turns heel again. And he aligns. So now we have babyface Vince McMahon versus heel Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Welcome to Bizarro World.
What is the reaction from the locker room like at this point? Because it does feel like Bizarro World.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely felt like when they did that deal, it was going to be a huge chore to swim upstream, making Steve Austin someone that people were going to cheer for. I mean, whenever they did it at WrestleMania 17, and we've talked about this, he didn't get the heat that he was the desired heat that he wanted to get, whatever. They did that self with Team Extreme where they got that heat on us trying to get over his heels, whatever it may be, and then when he did the deal and joined WCW and betrayed Vince. And it's just one of those things. I feel like it was really, you were really challenging yourself to swim upstream at a very fast rate, because it was going to be very hard to really make that set in on people's minds, because Stone Cold is just a beloved figure, right? And Vince McMahon was always at his best when he was an evil, awful heel, right? And he's the guy with money who can buy anyone. He's the guy with money who just, whatever he says goes, and he is the ultimate heel when it comes to that scenario. What got WWE business hot in the Attitude Era was babyface Stone Cold, the working man, versus, corporate Vince McMahon. That shit changed the business. It really took us to a total another level. And now we're trying to do the opposite of that. And I knew it was going to be really hard to swim upstream doing that.
Was Austin aware of the perception to him at that time?
I mean, I think he had to be. But I think he was also legitimately trying to get heat and be a heel, because he was the consummate professional. I mean, if he was going to start going in a direction, he's like, I'm headed down a path and we're going to keep going that way. I'm not going to back out on it right now.
Well, there's a bunch more betrayal over the course of the next couple months. The Rock returns. He's going to side with the good guys. He's going to side with Vince. Kurt Angle wins the championship in the aftermath of September 11th. And then 2 weeks later turns heel to align with Shane and Stephanie and Paul Heyman. And Vince proposes a one-night-only affair where we are going to settle this once and for all. It's going to be appropriately at the Survivor Series. All the matches throughout the night are going to be WWE versus WCW. And it will be finality, because the main event is going to see the Alliance versus the WWF, winner takes all for control. We are in North Carolina for this. The Hardy Boyz are going to be going against the Dudley Boyz in a unification tag team championship match inside a steel cage. There's an immunity battle royal, which of course is won by your friend Andrew Martin. What would Andrew Martin call all those other people that he beat that night?
Just got out of the ring, jobber.
Exactly. It is going to be a night that will change the course and trajectory of the World Wrestling Federation, WCW and ECW. And Vince says that one person will turn their back on the alliance and help the WWF win. Everybody thinks it's going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, Matt, I think we should give a watch along to your excursion here in your steel cage match with the Dudleys.
I'd love to.
So let's get into that now as we watch this very unique match in your career that I think a lot of people tend to forget about. You ready to do this?
Yeah, let's definitely watch.
Want to step aside for a quick second, everyone, and remind you that this episode of The Extreme Life of Matt Hardy is presented to you by Game Time. Game Time has got you covered for all of your last-minute ticket needs. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, wrestling, and theater events all near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You guys know my deal. I've told this story many a times. It was very important for me to see Bruce Springsteen on tour, and Game Time hooked me up at the very last second, 45 minutes before the show, and gave me enough time to get over to the arena with a killer deal on my ticket to see the Boss. It's one of my favorite concert-going experiences of my life, and I have Game Time to thank for that. With Game Time, you can see the view from your seat before you actually buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the arena or the stadium or the theater, wherever it may be. All-in prices, they show you your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without all those hidden fees, and you can buy those tickets in seconds with just 2 taps on the app. And I want to tell you about their zone deals, because I think this is one of the coolest things about Game Time. With their zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time's going to credit you 110% of the difference. So how can we make this reality? Let me tell you how. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HARDY, HARDY, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, everyone, we are going to do a watch-along of this steel cage match between the Hardy Boyz and the Dudley Boyz. If you want to cue up your cock to Survivor Series 2001. The shot we are looking at are the two teams looking across at each other. Jimmy Corderas is holding the championship belts in the rings. You guys were each tag team champions, so this is a unification match. The rules are escape the cage or pinfall, but in order for each team to win, either both guys need to escape the cage or just one pinfall needs to occur. So try to follow along with the rules there. And we are going to begin in 3, 2, 1. So
here we go.
Before this match, Matt, we saw a promo segment with you, Jeff, and Lita where they were a little nonchalant, and you were trying to push forward to them the severity of this match, all the stakes, that your jobs are on the line, but it also seemed like it was building a little bit of tension between you, Brother Nero, and Lita. What was that all stemming from?
This was the first time they really made a very sufficient attempt to try and separate us, I think. So that they were laying, the seeds. They were planting the seeds for us to eventually do a split, and this match was going to help accelerate it in some of the ways. And I think it was just part of telling the story.
The rules of this cage match are hilarious to me, because we are starting with Jeff and Devon on the outside like a normal tag match, and there are tags involved. But meanwhile, a steel cage match is essentially anything goes, right? You're in the confines of steel. So why the hell is this not a tornado tag team match?
I mean, it could be. They were really adamant that day. I remember talking to them about this because we always wanted to do like tornado tag team fashion whenever we had a cage match or whatever. But, they said, no, let's just start it like a normal tag match, where you guys are in the corners, you do tags in, tags out, and then we can build to that and then let it all break down. And I mean, I get it. I get the rationale behind it, as far as why you're doing that, as far as building purposes. But like at the end of the day, like if you're in there and two guys are double teaming your brother and your partner, it's like you're going to jump in and help them too. So it's also kind of wild. It also kind of fails from a storytelling perspective too.
We got Stacy Keibler on the outside as the Duchess of Dudleyville.
Yes.
What do you think about her with Team 3D here?
I remember when she was first put with Team 3D, and I was like, I don't know. Seems like Stacy could be used in a better role, but it ended up working really well, and she actually did great with them. And like they bonded and they gelled, and I thought they were a good unit together. I think she helped them a lot. And once again, I can't get over the fact that because we spelled our last names with a Z, Boys, B-O-Y-Z, the Dudley Boys copied us. We really set that trend. We said we got the S's out and we brought in the Z's.
Very 2000 of you guys to do that.
Very much so.
Yeah, I feel like Bubba Ray probably didn't have too much of a problem with Stacy Keibler being in his corner.
Yeah, no, I doubt either one of them did, especially Devon too. Devon, I'm sure he did not have a problem having Stacy Keibler in his corner.
Would he say, testify, my brother, to that?
Testify, my brother. Yes, indeed. That's the only thing he ever had to say.
Testify. So you're taking a lot of the heat here in the early going, Matt.
Yeah, that is what is going on here. I'm getting my ass whipped. I was just gonna say too. One thing that was very funny about myself and Bubba and us kind of being the captains of our team, the architects of our team. I remember there'd be times where we would joke one another. Said, Bubba would say, "Okay, well, you tell Jeff when to do the swanton. I'll tell Devon when to get the tables." We'll make sure that that our partners know their role. They know when they're going.
Well, in theory here, Matt, this is a cage match, so I don't know how the hell they would get some tables in this thing.
Somehow we can be creative. They are the guys that are associated with tables. We can't let the fans down. They're going to want to see a table at some point in this match,
even though they're the heels.
Yeah.
Do you think the Dudleys are better heels or baby faces?
Definitely. I mean, if they're being serious, they're much better as heels. Whenever they're being more fun-loving and whatnot, they're okay as baby faces. But in totality, I think the Dudleys are best in the role of a heel.
Why is that?
I just think they're not super flashy. They're like they don't do like a ton of cool moves. I mean, they do 3D obviously, but they're kind of like just like meat and potatoes guys. And they could go out and I feel like they could work over an Edge and Christian. And Edge and Christian have the charisma and they have the cool moves and stuff that it would take to get cheered over them. They work with the Hardys. The Hardys have the charisma and the cool moves that it's going to take to get cheered over them. But they were very good at like spotting people and stuff, very good on basing on stuff. And I just feel like they're much more meat and potatoes. And usually meat and potato guys, they're better as heels.
Double poetry in motions, and now you two are climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer Escape the Cage, or do you prefer pinfalls for cage matches?
I get it. I like the idea of just ending it in a cage. I feel like, if you're in a cage, the reason usually the story gets to that point is because you have guys that are like interfering. Ooh, that's rough on the
yeah. How much did a Bubba Bomb take a suck to take?
Well, when I was young and healthy and invincible, it wasn't too bad, but like, especially from the top, that was like brutal, especially when you don't have like your hands to, embrace any of the impact of the fall or whatever. It was tough, especially now, like with the damage that has been done to my pelvis over the years, like no Bubba Bombs for me now. But I think too, just like at the end of the day, the Dudleys, if they really want to like get on the mic and piss people off, they were really good at doing that, especially being serious. Everybody, they're known for their legendary rants and almost causing riots in ECW and whatnot like that. I just feel like just based on who they are, how they work, and the stuff that they do, what's in their wheelhouse, they were better as heels, being cast in a heel slot.
Back to the point of what I was talking about with the cage, I feel like the Escape the Cage thing only became super popular because
that's a great spot.
That was a great spot. It came during the time where there was more people like you guys who were willing to do crazy stuff off the cage. So by doing Escape the Cage, you opened up the possibility for more spots of craziness.
Yes, and you're right too. I went on a tangent there for a second. We getting a doomsday device here? I assume. Yeah, there we go. Dudley device. Excuse me.
Great sell from Jeff.
I loved like the old school cage matches of it being a submission or a pinfall in the cage. Because I feel like that's the deal. Like you want to get the competitors in the ring, because usually to get to a cage match, people have been interfering. They can't get a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2 fair match, and that's why you go in the cage. And I like settling the business in the cage. But also being able to escape the cage allows you to have a reason to climb up to the top and then jump off and do more exciting things, much like you were saying earlier.
Now the Dudleys in firm control here. Let's see what we're going to get. Wait, I don't even know who the legal man is. We've just, like you said, we've thrown that out the window.
Yeah, we're past that now.
So the rules just changed on the fly.
I mean, they were trying to attempt to build the match. It started off as a regular tag match, and now it's a tornado style rules match.
Pinfall on Jeff. You break it up.
And this too, like we were in our element doing this too. Like when we were doing a tornado tag style match, that's us in our element.
How do you control a bump into a cage?
You just have to hit it hard. Oh boy, here we go. This is I've got a hell of a story coming out of this one.
Oh,
Bubba massacred me right there. I'm sure you're going to see me grab my mouth. So one of my front teeth in my mouth there, like turned 90 degrees. It got caught in the cage whenever he's splashing. It got caught in the cage and it turned 90 degrees all the way sideways. And you could probably see me, or right there, I'm like trying to push it back up in my gum. And I'm like, it's loose as shit. And I'm like, this tooth is definitely coming out. It's definitely coming out. But it turns out that just years later, this is, watch.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go grab it in my mouth. Yeah, right there, I'm grabbing my mouth. Because it got caught right in the cage and it ripped it sideways. And you'll see my mouth bleeding.
Yeah, you're doing it right now. As Jimmy Cordero's checked on you.
Yeah. So like we put that, they tried to, they got me to a dentist the next day, and they tried to reset the tooth or whatever and do everything they could to like save it. But like years later, this tooth started like turning gray because it died. It got pulled away from the roots and the gum and whatnot. So the tooth slowly started dying. So that's eventually why I ended up getting veneers in the front, because that tooth was dead and had to be replaced.
Well, now you got a lovely smile, a charming smile.
Lovely smile. Like DDP.
That's right. You and Roman Reigns and your veneers.
Yeah. I love my veneers.
All right. So Bubba tried to do a cannonball, no water in the pool.
Bubba has never hit that senton.
Yeah,
only he has never hit it.
I would imagine it would suck.
Yes.
You are still going here, though, despite your inverted tooth.
Yes. I got to do it. You got to do what you got to do. Just get through it.
You're like, here, Bubba, eat shit. I hope your tooth goes inside out.
Oh, definitely. If it would have been up to me, it would have been a tooth for a tooth.
Tooth for a tooth.
Bam.
Classic 1980s wrestling spot right there.
Yes.
Bubba tried breaking up the pin with an elbow, and you get out of the way just in time for him to hit his own partner. The Brainbusters used to do stuff like that in their matches all the time.
Yeah. They were so good. Arn and Tully were so good together. I enjoy them so much.
I know you probably don't remember specifically where that spot came from, but like hypothetically, where would a spot like that be issued from? Would that be an agent idea? Would that be from you guys?
Which one? The misdirection?
Yeah, Bubba accidentally hitting Devon.
Yeah, I'm sure that was Bubba's idea. They were really good at, like, if they were going to be heels, they would commit to the bit and they would be heels, and sometimes have a miscommunication, do a misdirect. Yeah,
Arn and Tully used to do stuff like that all the time.
Yeah.
I love callbacks. We saw the Dudleys go to these same corners. Yeah, look at your mouth. It's all bloody. Yeah. We saw the Dudleys go to the same corners. Now you guys hit Event Omega. 1, 2.
Dave coming in here.
Okay. This match is a lot longer than I remember it being, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we had a decent amount of time for this. I can't remember exactly. I mean, I feel like we were the whole segment altogether was like 15 or 16 minutes is what I feel off the top of my head, but I'm not certain. Don't quote me on that.
I'm pulling up the match notes. Don't you worry.
Yeah, good. I like it when you come with the fat check. Yeah, this was tricky, but the Jimmy legs helped me out here. I think to get my leg. The Jimmy legs were beneficial for a change.
How so?
Just the way they bend. It like someone normal, it would have been a little more difficult. The way my hip bends outwards, it made it less painful, put less pressure on me.
Again, you guys are in Hardy country here too.
We're in Greensboro, if I'm not mistaken.
We're in North Carolina, North Kakalaki. Here come the tables.
Table. Stacy Keebler pulling it out with his long legs.
Nick Patrick being enchanted.
Yeah.
She steals the key out of Nick Patrick's back pocket.
And he just walks off. He doesn't even realize, doesn't see it.
He got enchanted.
Oh, maybe two. He's also an Alliance guy, so he was.
That's true.
He was always a shady ref.
You know, I'll say this: it's for given the character that Stacy Keebler was, it's a creative spot.
Yeah.
Now he realizes, and it's too late. The table is in the ring.
They got the Hardys down. Why don't those guys just get out?
Yeah.
Welcome to pro wrestling, guys.
That's a fun little spot.
Yeah.
I'm into that. Ooh,
yeah.
Good tease of a 3D.
Mm-hmm. To the running, dragging down clothesline, I would do then.
Can you believe Stacy dated George Clooney? Like, that's one of the most famous guys in the world.
Yeah, that's wild, man. So wild.
Here's Matt Hardy scaling the cage.
Come on. I gotta go. 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 I gotta go.
Now, I'll break this down here, Matt. If it's just you escaping, aren't you leaving Jeff for the Wolves here, in theory?
Yeah, but I was hoping that Jeff has got it together enough that he can get out as well. I am, yeah. That was part of the psychology of the match. If one guy gets out, the other one has to do it, but he could find himself in a 2-on-1 scenario. We probably should have hit like double twisted and maybe stacked them up into a swanton before both trying to get out. Jeff tries to procure a victory there via pinfall, unsuccessfully.
Desperation cover from him. But now he is alone with the Dudleys.
Yes, so this is, part of the psychology. He's got to drop Devon. He's got to get out of there.
I just don't like the rules because in theory, you escaping should be a good thing, but in actuality, it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that why does he go under the table?
There he goes.
Okay. I can't believe Devon's trying to catch him and he passed down the table, bless his heart. Devon was trying to chase him down and he exerted all his energy, passed down the table.
So Jeff has reached the top. You're saying, come on, Jeff, come down.
And this was kind of the big point of the match. He has a daredevil addiction and he can't avoid it. He sees on the table.
Oh. Flush.
And there I am out there with my 90-degree tooth, just distraught. Jeff, why couldn't you just do it? All you had to do was get down.
Was it better off to go through a table than just hit the ring hard like that?
Yes, 100%. 100%, yeah.
1, 2, desperation cover from Bubba puts them away. So even though the Hardys looked like they were about to win, in actuality, they end up losers.
Mm-hmm. Jeff's addiction. They caught up to him, man.
The spot monkey has it cost him in the end. So this match went 15 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay. All right. I was pretty close then. I would say with the entrances, then we probably had 18 minutes.
In the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer did say that it was full of some pretty cool spots, but from a logic standpoint, Jeff came across like a real idiot having the match won, but instead blowing it by jumping off the cage.
And I'll even say this too. I remember there was one point when that finish was laid out for us, and they were talking about doing it. Jeff's like, I don't know. I mean, should probably just jump down, right? Like we would win the match. And like, well, no, you're just like in the heat of the moment. That you're in the heat of this moment. Like now you can destroy your enemy, and it's like what you live for. It's your adrenaline rush. It's what you're here for. To like, ooh and ah the crowd, and you go for it, but then you miss, and it costs you the match. And now there's this issue between you and your brother going forward, and we're going to build upon that and make it into something new, something along those lines. Jeff's like, I don't know, maybe I should just kind of come down to the floor. He questioned it a little bit, which I was glad.
How many stars do you think this match deserves?
From Dave Meltzer, I mean,
how much would you give it?
I would give it, considering the parameters we had to work within, I would give it 4 stars.
4 stars. He goes 3 1/4, which is still a good rating, but I think he feels that the logic loopholes in the match hurt it, and it is a fair criticism because the rules were kind of all over the place in that match. But it is another match in Hardy country that the Hardy Boyz lose.
Well, I mean, that was you always feared coming home because usually that meant you're going to get a good embarrassing loss.
Vince really felt that way, huh?
Vince really did, especially if he thought that people just like, well, they're definitely going to win. They're in their hometown. Sometimes you got to reward people with stuff like that, especially when you're there in front of your peeps and whatnot. But the one thing I can give Vince is that I know some of those matches you've asked me, like, hold up, you guys are going into a title match and you got beat by the Radicals, a week before, 2 weeks before. Vince would keep the TV unpredictable, which is a good thing at the end of the day. It doesn't always make the most sense, but I do appreciate his unpredictability.
You got beat by A-Train and Just Incredible on SmackDown, and now you win the Tag Team Championship on the pay-per-view.
Oh, there you have it.
It's crazy. That's the type of booking that we would see. He goes 3 1/4 stars here. They did a stretcher job with Jeff afterwards, and that is the match. Later that night, Matt, we would get Team WWF versus the Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite Survivor Series matches, honestly. They have you guys all watching from the locker rooms to try and do this like sports team, which side is going to win, and you're watching the match, and eventually it is not Stone Cold Steve Austin that turns, but rather it is Kurt Angle who turns. And that allows The Rock to pin Stone Cold Steve Austin, and thus the WWF lives to see another day. And that other day is the next day where Ric Flair debuts, Vince McMahon turns heel, Kurt Angle turns heel, and Stone Cold Steve Austin turns babyface.
A quadruple turn.
What do you remember about the end of the storyline, Matt?
I think we were just all happy that it was over, that it wasn't WCW versus WWF every single episode. I think that grew old very quick, and I don't think people were crazy about it. And I remember during that whole period of all the WCW guys, it cut into, we were real hot at that time, right? And it cut into a lot of our TV time, and it had us doing weird things on TV, which, obviously we didn't like that much because Vince was very, he was dead set on like getting these WCW guys off. And he said, like, I got to get that WCW stank off them, because that branding's just so bad. I got to turn them into WWF superstars, not just these wrestlers. So it was frustrating during that period because like we were really hot. We were doing a lot of good things. And we were hoping we were going to have a much longer run as a tag team and really be in a good prompt spot, but it was very frustrating because it kind of cut into our TV time. There was more WCW guys on, and we were just hoping it would kind of get back to the normal at that point, but they were kind of really set. They were adamant that they wanted us to try and work against one another and try and split us up into singles. And I don't think myself or Jeff were ready to do that yet at this point.
Give me 3 wrestlers who you feel did succeed during the invasion and were able to leverage it into success afterwards.
Booker T.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think of the other guys from WCW.
Because there were, I'll say this, Matt, despite there not being Goldberg or Sting or the NWO, there were guys who did take advantage of the opportunity.
I think Shane Helms is one. I
Shane
think
Helms is definitely one.
and he made the most out of it. I mean, even like once I eventually separated from Jeff, and Shannon was great as the MFer. I thought, I mean, he stood out. It was the biggest opportunity I think he'd been presented with, kind of on his own. But Booker T is the one who first comes to mind as standing out. DDP, I mean, is still very mixed, and you could tell like Vince just wasn't a huge DDP fan, especially when it started with that whole stalker thing. I remember they did a couple funny things. He had a very funny thing with Christian, where Christian was doing the smile with him and whatnot. God, who were the other?
That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the other top WCW guys?
I would say that it is Booker T, Shane Helms. I'm totally in agreement with you. The Hurricane got over big.
Yep.
And I would say Rob Van Dam.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's not a WCW guy.
No,
per
but
se,
just the Invasion.
Yeah. Yes. RVD, for sure.
So I think those are probably the three who stand out the most from that era. Yeah, Tori Wilson did a good job, too. She leveraged that into a successful career for her.
Tori and Stacy both did really good.
Did as well. So it's not to say that there weren't people who didn't come in and succeed.
Right. But
overall, it did feel a little lackluster. What do you believe the legacy of the Invasion story is 20 plus years later?
WWF proved it was superior. They said it since day one, and they proved they were superior. That's the WWE. That's how they revisit history.
The revisionist history. I know that we look back on the Invasion generally with a lot of negative energy, just because it really did lack in the dream matches that we had hoped it would present. But I will say, Matt, from an outsider's perspective, I seldom can think of other times where TV was as captivating as it was consistently week in and week out as it was during the Invasion. Because even though you knew that it was kind of BS how the sides were being presented,
right,
there was so much inherent curiosity over who was going to show up when. Matches actually had stakes. You never knew who was going to turn good or turn bad. I don't think that the Invasion was quite as bad as people remember it to be. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I just think there was so much hype. People had envisioned that moment of having a Super Bowl of wrestling, WWF versus WCW, and it was going to be the most magnificent thing you've ever seen in the history of wrestling. And it just failed to live to those expectations.
My phone just started going off unprompted there. Apologies for that.
What was that?
I don't know. It just started going off. I opened up a tab because I was trying to tell everyone, Matt, how as we turn the page on this episode, and I agree wholeheartedly with your thoughts there, by the way, that we are closing in on episode 100 of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. How about that? Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? We're going to be in the 3-digit territory very, very soon.
You know what that means, baby? That means syndication. They can put us anywhere. We'll be everywhere.
Yes.
Hey, really appreciative of the support of all the Extreme Life faithful over the years. And it's really been so much fun. And we encourage you to be part of that brand with us here. We've got the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy merchandise store there, boxofgimmicks.com. We're hoping to be able to get you some new merchandise soon, some new opportunities and cool things, hopefully in the future here at the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. We got that live show at WrestleCade that we would love for you to be at and to see in person. It's just good vibes, man. Good vibes only here, the Extreme Life, right?
Yeah. Friday, November 24th, we're going to be doing the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy with several special guests, and there'll be some surprises and whatnot. But we hope to see you there. It's going to be a blast.
We really do, and we hope to have you as part of our team as well. AdvertiseWithHardy.com is the place you want to be. Promote your business to the extreme by getting it out in front of thousands of listeners and viewers every single week on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. AdvertiseWithHardy.com. Check it out today. Matt, it is Full Gear Weekend. Anything else you'd like to throw out there?
No. Whenever this comes out, we're a week away from the official stage show, a live edition of the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy. I hope if you guys are coming to WrestleCade, you will take some time and check us out. It's going to be a blast. You won't regret it. And then that following night, we're doing the Hardys' only independent wrestling match of the year. The only one. And it's going to be Matt and Jeff versus Heath and Rhino in a first-time ever match. It's something you don't want to miss. WrestleCade is going to be amazing next weekend. Don't miss it.
Can't wait for it. Jeff Hardy concert afterwards, too. It's just going to be so much fun. Check it out. Make sure you leave us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And always remember that the words have been spoken. We will see you next week right here on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy.
Delete!